Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the man, myth, the legend, Mr. Jonathan Twomley. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Hey, I want to talk about something I read. I've been reading about Milton Friedman lately, who's a Nobel Prize winning economist. Studied him a bunch in college and found, when I was cleaning up my office, found some old, I guess, papers you would say he wrote. And one of the ones that I read about is how to beat inflation, right? He is very succinct when he says inflation is always, like always, a monetary phenomenon. Too much money chasing too few goods creates inflation. And you can't look at the last 2 years and not see exactly what he was talking about. He goes further in this paper that I was reading, which I'm not sure, I might be able to find it online. Actually, I had a physical copy from my MBA class for whatever reason. And he talks about the only way to beat inflation is to have a constrictive monetary policy. I actually had to look up the definition of constrictive to make sure I knew what it was. But basically, you have to tighten and you have to extract money from the system. So I think that's where Powell's at. He needs to get constrictive. He's going to do that, obviously, first by stop digging. I can't believe he's still buying, but he is. Yeah. Then he's going to start raising rates, which will have some effect. But most importantly, he's going to sell, which I think is going to impact rates and all of this. So my big question for you, given all of that, is does Jerome Powell have to have a recession to beat inflation?
Well, probably.
Yeah, probably.
Right. I mean, I guess what they're going to, like a couple of thoughts. So first of all, like in the definition that you just discussed, right, of too much money chasing too few goods, it seems to me that if you could increase the production of stuff, then you could beat inflation that way, right? Because then you'd have enough stuff to satisfy the money that's out there that wants to buy it. So that would be one way, although there's not really a whole lot. I mean, there's not really a whole lot the government can do to increase the production of more stuff other than lower interest rates, which fuels inflation anyway, right? So I'm not sure the government can really have any impact on that, but it can, I guess, hope that people are going to make more stuff. And in the last session, we talked about the buildup of inventories. So who knows, maybe that's happened, right? If all the discussion that we heard a few months ago was correct, that this is due mostly to supply chain constraints, hence too much money chasing too few things, that if you have this big buildup of inventories, it's going to require sellers to reduce their prices to liquidate that inventory, and that will ameliorate things. So we'll see if that happens or not. So possibly that could help beat back inflation, right? But I think historically, when you look at least sort of what's gone on in our lifetimes, what you've seen is in order to beat inflation, you've got to jack up interest rates pretty considerably. And it's only happened one time that anybody's had the stomach lining to do it. The
backbone, yeah.
So I'm hopeful that, but who knows, this is just hope. I have no reason to believe that this is true. I'm hopeful that Powell and the rest of the governors of the Fed are smart enough to not let inflation get to 15% before they act, as happened, with Volcker, in the
pre-Volcker,
So, hopefully they will step in now when it's at 7% and rein things in. I think their hope is, well, the economy is so hot that it can absorb some interest rate increase without causing the whole thing to tank, right? And we'll see if they can do that or not. I mean, that's the theory, right? So you and I are right around the same age, and when I studied economics in college too, it was like kind of the monetarist moment, right? It was before the monetarists had taken over the Fed, right? Which they did, starting with Reagan. Well, I guess I'm getting my timeline mixed up, because certainly by the time I was in college, Reagan was already out of office. But I'm just trying to think. There still was I remember there being a pretty big debate still, as to whether monetary policy or fiscal policy was the real lever for the economy. And the monetarists at least got control, right? But I remember, I took economics with Marty Feldman. I don't know if you remember. Feldman.
I do.
And he was a big monetarist, right? And so the monitors, so I remember, they basically said, oh, we can just fine tune the economy just a little, like nudge it here, a little,
Mhm.
drop the rate 1/4%. Oh, it's
Mhm.
hot. Oh, we'll just turn off the volume a little bit, 1/4% rate hike. And I think that that hasn't necessarily, turned out to be right. I think that they,
Yeah.
or they didn't, or they certainly under Greenspan, I mean, you know, it was just throwing cheap money around all over the place to keep the party going,
Yeah.
and refusing to believe that he was causing a problem
Yeah.
because everybody was telling him what a genius he was, right? Because we had the,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I hope that they've got the backbone to nip it in the bud before it gets too bad. But
Yeah. I think he's got to cause I mean, again, this is hard to say because I don't think he wants a recession, but he needs a recession. Does that make sense? Nobody wants a recession. Everybody realizes that a recession hurts a lot of people, but he needs one because he has to break inflation. Consumer expectations for inflation are 4.9%. That's not healthy, right? That once inflation roots itself in consumer behavior, it's hard to remove. And yeah, if we don't nip it in the bud now, I think there has to be a recession. I think he's going to hope for a shallow but long recession to kind of work all of this out. Because if you don't do it now, then you're going to have to pay with interest, and I don't want to know what that looks like. We've got to take medicine eventually.
Yeah, and the thing that's kind of frightening is that if you think about it, since monetary policy became the main driver for the U.S. government, we haven't really had shallow recessions. We haven't really had business cycle recessions anymore. We've had
events.
We've had events related to too much money in the system, and those are extremely painful. They're very sharp,
painful. Yes.
Yeah, very sharp recessions, right? That are, and I mean, I think this is the danger of sort of playing with that tool of monetary policy. So, hopefully we can avoid that, but who knows? I mean, Powell will be a hero if he can tame inflation without causing another great recession, right? If he can just have a mild downturn that lasts a couple of months, or something mild that's a couple of years that people don't, most people are not affected by, then he'll be a hero, but who knows? I think also, I had a very interesting discussion with a friend of mine, Bruce Frazier. We recorded this for my group, and if you guys want to join my group, you can. This is my paid group. You can get an interview when I post it. But what Bruce is a real estate investor, former hedge fund manager, very sophisticated guy about economics, and his thesis is that the Fed is in a really sticky spot because it needs inflation, because we need to inflate away the federal debt. Right? So it is trying to create inflation while at the same time trying not to let it get out of hand, right? And so that the current inflation that we see, part of it, Bruce thinks, is the supply constraint issue that we've seen, which may resolve itself. But part of it is intentional inflation caused by the Fed to prevent the federal budget, basically the servicing costs of the federal budget deficit, from getting completely out of hand. So we may want to look at this even another way, which is to say, not only might we need a recession to like whip, to whip inflation, but we to right this ship, we may actually need some austerity for some time, which is higher taxes, lower spending, and higher interest rates, which will cause a recession for sure if we do that. But there's really nothing else that can get us off the addiction to cheap money and lots of federal, government debt. So that's something that, no politician is going to willingly do that. Not in America anyway. There are other countries around the world where the population is able to suck it up for a couple of years of austerity, and the politicians have the backbone to impose it. But not in the U.S., where everybody loves to have everything for free.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's going to be politically very difficult to impose austerity, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw.
Neither party wants it.
Yeah.
And, you know,
The national debt, I think I reported yesterday, might have been the day before, it just ticked over $30 trillion. Yeah.
it's just insane. So
Pretty crazy. So I'm of the mind that Jerome Powell needs a recession. I will admit he doesn't want one, but need and want are often very different. I do think he needs one. I think he's looking for a short or a, I think he would prefer long and shallow versus deep and short. So I think that's what he's trying to engineer. You know, that's where I stand on it. You have any closing thoughts? We'll give you the last word.
yeah, I mean, I think what you say makes sense. I don't really have any different opinion on it. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, how can people follow you, Jonathan? You put out a lot of amazing stuff. People got to join your Facebook group. You put out a lot of great stuff.
Well, so the Facebook group is the multifamily investment community, which so search for it. You can find it not without too much difficulty. If you want to join my private coaching group and get that interview with Bruce Fraser I was just talking about, well, the way to, you can go to multifamily launchpad, all one word, .org/join. And it's just $97 a month, and you get all kinds of stuff. You get my whole course, you get a monthly call with me. Unfortunately, our monthly call was last night, so you just missed this monthly call, but you can get the recording of that. You can join my investor list by going to just Google my company, Two Ridges Asset Management, LLC, and fill out our investor paperwork. It's a short form on the website, and you'll be on the list.
Very cool, folks. I suggest you do all three of those things. Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.